I'm just going to give you a super simple one, which is people who are getting older can't get stronger. And that's just not true. We can get stronger. We can get more flexible. We can get better balance up until the moment we die, as long as there's not some sort of neurodegenerative process going on that's impeding the actual physiologic processes within the neuromuscular skeletal system. So we can get stronger. We can engage.
Hi everyone, I'm Robbyn Battles with I'm Just Saying Let's Get to the Point, and my guest today is Vicki Landers. And Vicki wears a lot of hats. She has a coaching company called In Progress Coaching. She is a physical therapist. She is a professional speaker. And on top of all of that, she is an adult primary caretaker for her, I think she said 83-year-old mother. So lots and lots of hats. So with that, Vicki, say hello and tell us a little bit more that I didn't cover so far.
Hi, it's nice to see all of you and hear all of you listening to me here. Like she said, I'm a physical therapist. I've been practicing and doing adult and geriatric care for most of my physical therapy career, but I transitioned to coaching because I saw an opportunity to help the people who take care of the people a little bit more, because healthcare is a hard place to be as a provider and as a patient. And so I shifted to helping the people in a completely different way about 4 years ago. And it's a lot of fun. I like what I do, and I like when I get to help people see things or think about things in a different way.
What do you think? Because I watched a video with you and you were giving a speech to healthcare workers and talking about the stresses of being a healthcare worker and taking care of the patient. But what is the stress that's on our healthcare workers, especially about with our seniors?
Just from a healthcare perspective, we have insurance regulations. We have Medicare, we have Medicare Advantage plans, we have productivity standards, we have reduced time with patients. We have all of these pressures that are happening that have nothing to do. You notice none of that had anything to do with taking care of the patient. So we've got all this back end stuff and the documentation and how we make sure we document our records so that the billing happens correctly. There's all of that stuff that's happening behind the scenes, so that the reasons that we went into healthcare in the first place, we go to, generally speaking, it's to take care of people and it's to help. That sometimes becomes 50% or less of the actual job that we're doing. And
That's sad, because the person that suffers is the patient. It's the senior that suffers, because you're trying to be, because if I can make that relatable to a similar practice, is that's why we saw a lot of doctors getting out of their practice, because they were spending more time doing paperwork and they stopped taking insurance because it just didn't make sense. They have this fabulous education. They've worked all their lives to become doctors, and now they don't want to do it because they didn't sign up to be paperwork.
Yes,
That's
100%.
stressful.
That pressure that's going on for physicians is going on across the board. PTs, OTs, nurses, everybody is feeling a version of that. We're doing things that weren't the purpose for why we went into this. And it just gets so exhausting and so tiring.
If I'm a senior, I'm getting close to being that. So if I'm a senior and now I need physical therapy or I need some kind of outside help, how can I figure out, is there a way to even figure out that there are people that don't have this pressure of all of this behind the scenes, where they really are truly just going to focus on me?
That's a really tough one, because the insurance regulations and payment becomes a challenge. It's, can the aging adult afford to go outside of the medical system in order to get services and care? What I can tell you is that the people who are doing the work, so like your outpatient PT clinics, the therapists who work in home health, everybody wants to take care of the patient. And so the focus is going to be on making sure that you're taking care of the patient. So if you're looking for a provider, one of the best ways to do this is to actually go on the Medicare website and look for the providers with the 5-star ratings for quality and the 5-star ratings for patient care and for patient satisfaction. That's a really good way to do it. But honestly, what I would do is, I'm all about word of mouth. Talk to people who have gotten services and find out who they got the services from.
That's a great tip, because you look at our population of seniors is growing exponentially, and it seems like the services are declining. And I feel like we're in opposition with what's really happening and what's being provided. And the cost is just getting higher and higher. And it's like here's seniors that need care and they're not getting the care that they need. And then I also think there's also the way that they're treated. And I wonder if part of the way they're treated is because healthcare workers, they've got to get through the patients. They've got to get through because they've got all this paperwork and they've got to keep up. And if they get behind, then it's like this big boulder that's chasing our healthcare workers.
Yes, I had two thoughts as you were saying that. I'm actually in the process of putting together a presentation that's honestly, it's all about ageism in healthcare and how we see aging adults here in the US. There's a really good book called Elderhood, and there's another one called This Chair Rocks, which are both really good books about aging and ageism in the US. And so the thing that I'm putting together is all about how we can see our aging biases and get rid of some of it, because so many of the things that we believe about aging in the US are inaccurate. I'm just going to give you a super simple one, which is people who are getting older can't get stronger. And that's just not true. We can get stronger. We can get more flexible. We can get better balance up until the moment we die, as long as there's not some sort of neurodegenerative process going on that's impeding the actual physiologic processes within the neuromuscular skeletal system. So we can get stronger. We can engage. There's so much that we can do as we age that people make the assumption because we've been on the planet this number of years that those activities aren't appropriate for us. That's just not true. If we continue to be physically active for our whole lives and we don't stop because I'm too old for that, we can actually stay strong and vibrant and engaged in our communities for much longer than people have this belief that we can. And
I'm going to 150% agree with you on that. And I'll give you an example why I believe that is I look at my mom is 84 years old and suffers from a lot of different things. And one of the things I keep saying to her is, Mom, you need to get out of the house. You need to get some sunshine and you need to start walking. And she's, my feet hurt, my back hurt. And I'm like, but if you moved, they would hurt less. But something I noticed, so she's had a lot of health incidents. And when I watch some of the PTs come through, she says, if I don't want to sit there and just lift weights, I don't want to sit there and just stretch with the band. And she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to. But one thing I noticed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you are the expert on this, I'm not, but I'm going to make my observation is they never work on their feet. And this is what I mean by this. So I ran my first marathon right after COVID, and it really did numbers on my feet. So I thought it was my ankle. I thought it was my knee. I thought it was everything. I never thought about my feet. So I have become obsessed with foot exercises because it's the base of everything. And so in looking at all these therapists work with my mom, I'm like, Mom, are they helping you strengthen your feet? She goes, why would I do that? I walk. So I have strong feet. And I'm like, and so two observations is one, they don't work on the feet. And the next is they aren't paid a long enough amount of time to service the senior to really see a difference. It's like there are 5 sessions or there are a few and they're done and they're out. Not their fault, but the system's fault. Floor yours.
Yeah. So I'll address the foot thing. Feet are incredibly important. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in that there's not enough time to do as much evaluation as we would really like to really because it is a chain. You've got your foot, your ankle, your knee, your hip, your back, all of it's tied together. And the way that it is biomechanically working. Are there some biomechanical alterations that have changed with aging processes? It is part of the big picture. And a lot of times therapists are doing shotgun approach of trying to address as much as they can. And so, yes, I agree with feet. Feet is a big thing. And
oh, good. I feel like I knew something.
Yeah, you did. And the other thing about healthcare and the way we have the capacity to access it and it gets covered, when people are getting to the point where they are qualifying for Medicare, so we're getting to the 65 years of age, I really encourage people to take a very close look at these Medicare Advantage plans that are promising them the moon. Because what happens is they promise the moon, and then as soon as you actually need care, prior authorization shows up. Limits on the number of visits show up. Limits on which physicians you can see. Procedures or medications getting denied because it's not on the formulary. So I tend to say that Medicare traditional is going to get you better care in a more timely manner than any Medicare Advantage plan. And the Medicare Advantage plans, they promise a lot. And when you actually come to needing your care, it's too late to switch back to Medicare traditional, and you may not get what you want.
That's a great piece of advice. I'm not there yet. I watch my mom. I'm not even sure what my mom does on her insurance. I just see a lot. I know that she's got some private insurance still because she was able to afford that. But I think it's just sad. Don't you think? It's just sad that here you've worked all your life, you've paid into all these systems. And even if you haven't paid in a lot, but you've been here, you contributed to life itself on this planet, and you can't get basic care when you need it. And and I don't blame the healthcare professional. I blame everything that allows it to dysfunctionally run.
And there is a huge group of people who are in healthcare who are trying to figure out how to make a difference.
Why is it so hard? I'm not in it. I'm in a totally different world. But where is the bottleneck on all of this?
It's because healthcare is a business. And healthcare is the insurance industry, and it is the pharmacy benefit managers, and it is a business. And the insurance companies have come in, and I'm simplifying this incredibly, but the insurance companies are about making money for their shareholders. And making money for your shareholders means that you get people who are paying premiums, and you don't necessarily pay that money out in the care that's provided. There's a physician in Texas who's amazing. Her name is Elizabeth Potter. She is a plastic surgeon who works and does microsurgeries for breast reconstruction. And she is testifying in front of Congress to try to get legislation to change how our system is set up, because it is the system. The healthcare providers go into the work to do healthcare, and they aren't educated on the system and how insurance works and how things are covered and not covered and paid for and not paid for. And so the insurance system has gotten in here, and they're trying to make money for their shareholders. That's their purpose. UHC owns insurance companies, it owns pharmacies, it owns physicians, and it's all within this network that's just focused on trying to create income and value for shareholders.
What is UHC?
United Health Group.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, United Health Group, which owns UHC, United Healthcare, and some other entities.
And something else that's interesting is it seems as if they don't want you to have, it's an oxymoron that they call it healthcare, because you have to you get sick to use it, but they don't let you do things to stay healthy. Am I screaming? Am I screaming at the masses? I look at that and I'm thinking, okay, wait a second. So if I want to stay healthy and I want to go, because I beat to a totally different drummer when it comes to my health. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a medicine person. I do some very off the wall things with my fascia release and all this, I'm going to say, my husband says you do all this ooga booga stuff, which I think in the long run, I'll probably win because I just do so much alternative health maintenance so that I don't get sick. Because I watched my mom and I watched my dad. My dad unfortunately died of bone cancer. And I've watched my mom have multiple strokes and some other episodes. And I just swore I won't become that. I can't become that. But healthcare does not pay a dime for anything that I do. Well, and it's crazy. It's like I'm the one that you should be encouraging because I'm not the one that's costing you millions of dollars in your system. So keep me healthy. Help pay for all the stuff I want to do so I can stay healthy. But it doesn't make the insurance companies any money or the pharmaceutical companies any money. It doesn't make any of them any money if I stay healthy, right?
That is true. And so many things about that. We're going to start. I'm going to start with I believe that healthcare is what happens between the visits. So you see a practitioner, you might see a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physical therapist. Each one of those visits is a very short chunk of the totality of your life or of your week. You may spend half an hour with that person or 30 minutes with that person. And so
If you're lucky. If
right,
you're lucky. Yeah.
healthcare is what we do every single day. So when we hear healthcare in the news, what they're talking about is payment models and access. They're not talking about care of health.
Correct.
Care of health is what you and I do every single day. It's the choices that we make. And let's be honest, care of health is actually not sexy and it's actually pretty boring.
100%.
What is care of health? It's, are we sleeping enough? Are we eating nutritious foods? Do we use our bodies and move? Do we have community connections? Because connection and socialization actually adds a huge chunk to our life, to our lifespan and to our health span. Are we aware of all these things? Are we hydrating appropriately? All of that is what makes us healthy. And then when something goes off the rails, then we go get assistance. And so this is the thing that it has to do with autonomy and personal responsibility. We go to the provider and we need to stop expecting the providers to fix us and instead collaborate and be like, okay, this is my challenge. This is why it matters to me. And then you collaborate and figure out what's going to happen. And then you understand what you need to take away so that you do those things in your daily life, which is why I like to take a coach approach to this. Is like when you're meeting with your provider of whatever it is, you need to understand what it is you want from them, what it is that you are willing to do, and holding yourself accountable to that. So if both people...
Can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Absolutely.
Because so much great information right there. Here's what I saw when I was taking my mom to see the doctor. And I'm not penalizing doctors. I think that our doctors are doing the best they can in the moment because they don't have a lot of time with that patient. But I also realized that when I looked at my dad and his interaction between the doctor, my mom and her interaction between the doctor, my mom's a little feisty, so she's almost a little too aggressive when she's at the doctor. But my dad was like, honey, just listen to the doctor. He's the doctor. He'll tell me what medicine I need and what I need. And nobody would advocate for him, and I would be his advocate to say, wait a second, that makes no sense to me. Tell me why we would do this instead of that. I think that a lot of our seniors in particular in that era, they don't know what to ask. And then the doctor in turn, it's if we can just write you medications. My mom at one point, I think she had this giant assembly of pills. And I think it was like 8 or 10 pills. And I'm thinking, did anybody ever take all those 10 pills and put them together and decide how they react with each other? So I see that, the pushing of the pills, the lack of time, the lack of advocacy, and how do you even turn that to be a more holistic approach to helping the older generation?
So there's a branch of medicine. There's two that I want to talk about, but one of them is just geriatricians or gerontologists. Those physicians are physicians who specifically work with aging adults. They're not the best paid physicians, but they're the ones who think through exactly what you're talking about. They think through, what are all of these medications? Are they actually appropriate? Because one of the interesting things that if you read the book Elderhood, she talks about the research that's done on like medications. The research has been done on people who are like age 20 to 40 and male. That research and that evidence really doesn't necessarily apply because our physiology changes. And so when you're 80, your liver is functioning differently, your kidneys are functioning differently. And so different doses of different medications will react differently. So those physicians, which are hard to come by, but they exist, those are the people who take that beautiful holistic approach And they're really thinking about what matters to the patient and how to optimize life based upon the current situation. It does take more time. It's definitely a more challenging cognitive physician role, but they're out there. And so anybody who can find one, highly recommend for aging adults, that's who they need to see, because they're going to look at the whole picture. They'll think about function. They'll think about where do they live. They'll think about all of those things. It's really an extraordinary group of people. They're not reimbursed well.
Will insurance cover that for them?
They're considered a primary care physician.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great advice.
Yeah.
And I because I never heard my mom or my dad say, "Oh, I'm going to the gerontologist today." But
Right.
I really don't. And a lot of my business is seniors, and they say they're going to the doctor, but it's always, I'm going to the heart doctor, I'm going to, my dermatologist, just the kind of regular group. But I've never had one say, I'm going to start asking, do they have a gerontologist?
Yeah. Do you have a geriatrician? Generally, there's some sort of geriatrics centers. A lot of times these are in academic medical centers. Right. Who are more likely to have these folks. But again, large metropolitan areas usually have one or two of them. The waiting lists can be pretty significant, but they're extraordinary people who are,
Can I switch focus for just a second?
Sure.
I would love to know, when you're speaking and you're speaking to healthcare workers, what are some of the biggest issues with them that we haven't really talked about, that we wouldn't even go, oh gosh, I never thought that would be an issue for them? Or it's because it's behind the scenes and everything they deal with. What are some of those issues, and what are some solutions that you offer them?
So when I'm speaking, a lot of times what I talk about is how we're seeing the world as clinicians. How are we seeing the patients? How are we seeing people? And yes, we have systems that are a mess. We've hit the systems are a mess. And yet we still have to show up every single day and think about what we're doing and try to do our best. So the stuff that I talk about when I'm talking to clinicians is about, what lens are you wearing as you walk into your day? And how are you connecting it to your original purpose of being there? Because you can walk into a day, or any clinician can walk into their day feeling like a victim, like the world is out to get them. There's nothing they can do. They have no power. They have no control. And when we have that attitude, it's exhausting and we feel powerless. But maybe we wear a lens of conflict where we're just angry at everybody every single day. And you're angry at the patients because they're sick, and you're angry at your coworkers, and you're angry at administration, and you're angry at the insurance companies. People wear those lenses too. But there are lenses that we can choose that aren't nearly as exhausting as that victim or conflict. And it's more of a tolerance or compassion or curiosity. And believe it or not, those lenses are our choice. We have so much more choice when we show up every single day. And this isn't just healthcare professionals. This is everybody. We have a choice in how we choose to engage with the world. So that's a lot of what I talk about, is what lens are you wearing in any given situation? And what might it look like if you changed your lens and you put on a lens of curiosity? Yeah, that patient is really, they really seem to be angry at you, and they're upset and they're unhappy. Can we be curious? We're in healthcare. We are not seeing people on their best days. We are seeing people on their worst days. So being curious about who the person is actually makes a really big difference about how you work with them. Same thing among your teams, because these lenses, they create our attitudes, and the attitude results in how we behave. Because we know that person who is angry, what are they going to do? They're lashing out. They're mad at you. But that results in getting that energy back. So if I put out anger, I'm going to get anger. If I put out curiosity, I'm much more likely to get something that's a better experience for me and the patient, or me and my coworkers. So that's what I talk to clinicians about. It's this, you have more power over who you're being, and let's take that back and not give it away to the insurance companies or the administration.
I feel like that's advice that you could use in any industry with any situation. And you could even say, if you're going to see the doctor, change the lens with your doctor where you know he's rushed and you're irritated that you're not getting your answers the way you want your answers. It's like empathize with him and say, I know you're rushed. I can't imagine what it's like. I've got so many questions. If we could just slow down for a second, I know it'll make me feel better and you'll feel better. And I hope you have a better day sort of attitude. It just, because people are very edgy, more so than they normally are. And I think it is something we do have control over our attitude. And I think sometimes we forget that we have that, and it will make life a lot easier if you just it's just life. You've got to deal with it, find a pleasant way to deal with it, because the anger probably doesn't work so well in your favor in the end.
It doesn't. And I love that you mentioned just how we as patients can interact with physicians. There's a woman who has her business, I believe, is called Stand Up for Doctors. And it's all about reminding us to thank our physicians. Because when we thank our physicians and we send them a card, we bring them a little something, or we just say thank you, it makes such a huge difference in the day of the physician so that they do a better job. And you get back what you give. And just saying thank you is really impactful.
And I also think that in any situation, be it a doctor or just anything, if you just take 2 seconds to step into their shoes and go, okay, they're very stressed, or this, I couldn't be a doctor. I couldn't deal with, first, I don't like blood. So that eliminates a lot of possibilities. But every profession is hard. If that's what there's bad to everything, there's difficulty in everything. And coming off with an attitude of anger and mean is not, it just doesn't work so well for you. And it's just like, step in their shoes for a moment. That's kind of, I try and do that. I don't always win with my attitude, but because it's just human nature, right? But I love that. Tell me one more thing, and then we're going to wrap it up, because we could sit here and chat about healthcare and seniors and all of this forever. What are some points you would like our listeners to understand about you?
Back to the beginning, that I hope that people take away from this, that they have more autonomy than they recognize, and that the world, you can look at the world as a horrible place, and you can look at the world as an amazing place, and you can do that regardless of what's actually going on around you. So I just want people to stop and think about how amazing this planet is that we live in, and where we live. We're super fortunate to be in the situations that we're in, even when they are hard. Aging is not for the faint of heart, but it's really worthwhile, and it's a really rich thing to have happen to us. And that's one of the things I really like people to take away, is that aging it's extraordinary, and it's a really nice opportunity to contribute back, and to also, actually, I don't even know what the end of that sentence is. I just want people to honor aging in themselves and others and the people they care for.
A lot of wisdom from the older generation.
Yeah, so much.
If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's your contact information? What's the best way to reach you?
You can reach me at vicki@vickilanders.com, and that's VICKI. I have a website. Imagine this, it's vickilanders.com. That's where all of my speaking information is, or I'm on LinkedIn, and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So if you find me there, send me a message there. I promise I'll respond.
Vicki, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to just have nice conversation that goes back and forth, and you let me just go wherever I wanted to go. And I really appreciate that. And I think our listeners will too. I'm Robbyn Battles with I'm Just Saying. We got to the point with Vicki Landers. She's great. Reach out to her if you've got questions for her. If you want her to come speak to some of your healthcare workers, I think it would be a great idea. Vicki, thanks again. It's been my pleasure to host you. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed every second of it.
I'm Robbyn Battles, and I'm Just Saying. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you'll come back for future episodes, and be sure to like, share, and follow. I'm Just Saying. Let's get to the point. I'm Robbyn Battles.